continuing reading and recording. This is a really cool story. The amazing realization continued for some time until I was becoming used to this phenomenon of ever-changing beauty. Then, quite unexpectedly, we were flying among the stars. I could see galaxies, novas, and different forms of planetary systems displaying an infinite variety of shapes and colors, as though we could swim through time and space uninhibited from any restraints. The phenomenon of color and shapes continued as we flew through images far more complex than those from any super telescope. How can you, a manta, I asked, confined to the water and an ocean, swim among the stars? The manta scoffed as though to say, don't you know anything? I began to realize that in spite of all my searching, education, and learning experience, my understanding of life was far more confined than that of a manta. I was very humbled experience as I found myself opening even more completely to the magic of a manta. Time stood still for me as we wigged our way through a universe continually emerging into time and space and flowing back into a field of complexity that was so amazing, so beautiful, so alive, and so pervasive that those realizations have never left me. Life is a fantastic tapestry of multiple dimensions, so magnificently woven that it defies description. We are all participants in an undescribable dance, a dance of life. During this experience, my scuba diving companions had watched my encounter with the manta as we hung suspended in the water facing each other. Amazing to the connection between the manta and me, Gary swam back across the bay, climbed aboard the boat, dug his underwater camera out of his gear bag, and swam back again, approached us, and he was adjusting his camera, which made several loud clicks. The manta and I were passing a huge nova, filled with unimaginable colors on our right, when the wrenching sensation went through my stomach. Torn from my reverie, I realized I was back in the water again, and I opened my eyes. I saw the manta turning its gaze back towards Gary. I followed his gaze as it went from Gary to each of the others. One diver was positioning at the end of one of its wings. Another was at the end of the other wing. I was directly in front of Gary, who was swimming up behind the manta, was making strange noises with the camera. I could sense the manta's apprehension about being surrounded by these strange humans and the clicking noises. I must go now, was all it said as it glided over the ridge and down into the depths again. The manta left me with a vivid realization that most vital parts of the dance of life is that everything is connected, and through presence we can experience it all. It dawned upon me then how much of my life was a quest for presence, and how my father, who seldom seemed to ever notice me, was seldom present. In fact, he seemed to avoid presence as though his integrity demanded it, as a sacred pledge. He never in my entire memory of his life spoke directly to me while being present. His rejection seemed so final that I, even as a young child, was left to search for presence in some type of connection. I wanted a deeper, intimate, more real relationship. He could never allow that connection, so I sought even more for it, craved it, and became hypersensitive to the multiple dimensions of being present. It was not until I understood hyperspatiality and parallel worlds that I finally understood the sacred pledge of my father in his covenant regarding presence. It was not until I got into the middle of Russia that I realized the sacred covenant we Americans have made with our Russian neighbors, or our terrorists in the Middle East, and the covenant they have with the anti-terrorism. It was not until I began to explore the outer dimensions of time and space that I began to realize that the dance of life is part of a larger tapestry, and we are, as humans, are right in the middle, present between different dimensions of consciousness enfolded within our physical reality. Even though Einstein's theory of relativity, E equals mc squared, holds true in space-time, how is it possible that human thought can travel faster than the speed of light? Does this mean that consciousness contains phenomenon beyond the confines of realms of classical and even quantum physics? We are in between. As soon as we explore bigness and smallness, the universe becomes interactive at both extremes. Time bends. It curves back in upon itself and takes on shape. Time becomes less and less relevant. Also, at both extremes of bigness and smallness, the conscious holographic nature of everything emerges. At the smallest of things, the subatomic level, matter becomes self-organizing and consciously interactive. At the big end of things are the patterns by which galaxies self-organize and give birth to other galaxies. These interactions are reflected back upon us. The patterns that emerge from bigness reflect back, similar patterns to those that occur at the extremes of smallness. Everything indicates that this universe is dynamic, holographic, and multidimensional. Only in between bigness and smallness, where we live and dance, does reality appear to be a space-time continuum. This is where we dance the dance of life and of death. The deeper we explore into smallness and bigness, the more the dimensions of consciousness appear unveiling more and more about the tapestry of life, and the clearer becomes the role of humankind in the scheme of things. In this unfolding dimension of this conscious reality, a single thought can ripple throughout space and time. That's why be very, very careful of what you think about. And think about good things. Don't think about bad things, because thoughts create. And my bird is in competition with this book. I love you! When I step back and look at my position in relationship to everything in the universe, I can consciously choose to take what is called a superposition. I assume the state of being present that includes everything at once. From this superposition, I experience life on Earth as pretty much the middle between bigness and smallness. I discovered we planned it that way. I want to explore with you the reasons I have come to view reality in this way. This is about how the dance of life works, and as in learning to dance, I would like to begin step by step. From first, we are in relationship to space-time. We are really in between. The answer is yes, we really in between. When we look at the age and size of everything, and even look at time, we are in the middle of space and time. Bigness and smallness. In order to recognize our in-between position, let us assume that the human body represents a unit of 1 in the size of things. If the smallness measure we can detect or theoretically justify is a Planck length 10 to the minus 40. The largest size we can detect is the size of the visible universe, 10 to the plus 40, more or less. Then humans are in the middle. There is about as much bigness out there in the space as there is smallness in the inner space we measure into smallness. We are almost exactly in the middle of space continuum as far as size of everything is concerned. In other words, we are in the middle of space size. Time, the age of things. We are also somewhere in the middle of the age of things. We are taking one human life as a measure of time, and human life is, for example, 100 years old. The life of a human is equal 10 to the 10th second. The shortest measure of time conceivable is called Planck time, 10 to the minus 43 of a second. The longest duration of time is the age of the universe. That is about 10 to the 43rd hundredth year. Notice we are more or less in the middle of age of things, between both in space and in time. As time passes, the age of the galaxy is estimated to be about 15 billion years old. The beginnings of things, if there was ever a beginning, is estimated to be another 10 billion or so years old. On the other extreme, most particles in the universe are very short-lived. As strange as it may seem, if you live to be 100 years old, you are older than about 50% of the rest of the particles of matter in the universe. Half the particles in the universe pass in and out of our space-time very quickly. They have a very short life, a very early death compared to you and me. So we are older than half the universe and younger than half the universe. We are in the middle of age, a very interesting position, don't you think? I'm going to post this picture so you can kind of get that. You can pause it and see what that means to you. The universe as we measure it is in a constant birth and death process. Most of the matter in this universe comes into existence and then vanishes before we could see it with the naked eye. This in and out process of manifestation is so universal that much of the universe is emerging and disappearing within time frames of less than 1 second. While you and I experience the world of matter as stable from our in-between position in the universe, reality is anything but stable. We live in a dynamic universe where everything is in constant motion and nothing really stable. Even the cells of our body are constantly renewing themselves. They transform almost completely about every 8 days. Still, we humans look the same. We think the same thoughts, feel the same feelings, and we remember things from the past. How then do we retain our identity? Matter is conscious. One of the best kept secrets of science is that matter is conscious. Photons respond with intelligence. They emerge from quantum fields where they exist only as potential until they are given form. Atoms are not little billiard balls bouncing around in space. They are what quantum physicists refer to as standing waves or spinners of information. These spinners emerge from the quantum field of potential as holographic projections that are correlated with our senses and give us the experience of matter. The entire system maintains its form as physical matter because of the harmonics of the information and its form of motion. People remain constant in time and space because we are not only in time and space. We exist in multi-dimensions of consciousness. Like the strings of a violin, everything is set in motion and programmed to interact according to an implicit order. It is a complex, interactive network of information in which we are multidimensional, hyperspatial, and physical. We are immersed in a living network of information that is feeding back on itself continually. The interactive nature of reality can be seen in both the bigness and the smallness of the universe. Our experiences with life is a limited experience with confined information. Nature is made of this information network and are part of the nature. We cannot be separated from the nest into which we are woven. We are drawn to explore the field and to look at the nature of information. Take, for example, the nature of an atom. We used to think of an atom as a solid particle, something like a little billiard ball. Then we discovered it has a nucleus with orbiting electrons. Next we discovered the nucleus was made of a photon that was made of resonating waves of energy. Electrons are not electrons at all, but are waves that can take on the form of valence bonding electrons. The latest version of the atom looks more like a diagram below. I'll tape that. From one view, it can still appear as a billiard ball, but the atom is much more than a three-dimensional solid particle. Each atom is composed of a network of information spinners, emerging in a holographic form, projecting from hyperspace from within a quantum field of potential. This is the diagram. They're waves. They're almost like each one of them is a wave that circles and makes, you know, sort of like trumpets. In the left, the description. Oh, I'm running out of time. Gotta upload.